Hello, hello, hello. I'm Holly Rustick with Grant Writing and Funding, and I'm here to help you grow capacity, increase funding, and to advance mission. All right, I'm super excited on the show today. I have one of the co-owners and the current CEO of Instrumentl, a grant research platform. It is amazing. So please welcome my guest, Gauri Manglik. Hi, Gauri.
Hey, Holly.
How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yes, of course. And I'm super excited to have you. We were talking in the green room before we got started today. And I was saying, oh my gosh, I remember Angela, she was here. She's one of the co-founders as well of Instrumentl. She was on podcast episode 107, Angela Brerin. And yeah, so that was a lot of fun. So I love having people, especially one of the co-owners, the co-founders of Instrumentl, because and I love to brag about this, woman-led, 3 women that started this business and have a lot of experience in the nonprofit world, but also the tech world. And that's kind of where you come in. You're like the tech goddess, right? Of like getting this whole thing, because Instrumentl, for a lot of you guys who don't know about it, it's a grant research platform. And it also has other tools that you're going to talk about today, right, Gauri?
Yep. Yeah. As long as you let me.
Oh, yeah. I'm really excited about this because it's a great platform. A lot of people ask me about it, and I'm actually an affiliate of Instrumentl. We have a partnership, so you can get 2 free weeks trial to Instrumentl, and then if you use my code, you get $50 off. And the reason I really wanted to go into this partnership with you guys is because, like I said, I know Angela. I've met her at Grant Professional Association Conference. She's been on the podcast, and now I'm meeting you. And it's really cool just to see the things that grant writers actually develop for grant writers. So it's not like someone coming in and being like, I'm a project manager, I'm a for-profit business, and I'm developing this for you nonprofits that really don't know how the arena works. So I'm really glad that not only are you guys a team of grant writers and familiar with nonprofits, but also super important, have to be familiar with tech, right? Because it is an online platform. So yeah, so can you just kind of give us a definition of Instrumentl a little bit, just to maybe touch on anything that I didn't touch on as far as what it is?
Sure. Yeah. So Instrumentl is the institutional fundraising platform. And so what we do is we help nonprofits and professional grant writers with all aspects of institutional fundraising, from prospecting to tracking their prospects to managing their application process, to even reporting and collaboration with broader teams. So the kind of secret sauce with Instrumentl is that we bring all of that together in one place.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I always like to kind of equate it to, it's like a dating app for grant writers, for grants with grant funding opportunities, you know, because it's smart. And I love that you're on today, because that tech component is what really is interesting to me. When Angela was saying you guys have people that are just crawling data all the time, and you know, you look at a lot of different grant research platforms, and a lot of them are really good, right? But the thing is when they have the grant research up there, it might not be updated. They might just be pulling from another platform and kind of piggybacking off of that, but not doing the research to make sure that, oh, the funding application deadline didn't get shifted. This is actually still a foundation that has a website, all of those types of things. And I know Instrumentl is really robust at doing that. And that is important to a grant writer, because you don't want to start writing a grant and then all of a sudden realize it's not even up anymore, right? 5 months that website was down, but the foundation directory didn't update. So that's a huge flaw. So I just want to applaud you guys on that.
Thanks.
Good. Yeah, you're welcome. And I like how you connect. So the dating platform, how I like to look at it, and then I'm going to let you take over. But I just, one more thing I like to like fan over this is because you actually put in your project, and then it's going to connect you with the funding source. So it might not just be the foundation in general. It's going to tell you, okay, this is one of the funding opportunities that the foundation provides that is best connected to your project. So it doesn't just say, here's a kind of like a cold call dating thing, but they actually connect you to the right funding opportunity. So just, that's cool, right? I mean, how did you guys come up with that idea to be like, this makes more sense?
Totally. Actually, I mean, that insight really came from Kat and Angela, my 2 other co-founders, because they were in the space and they had seen this problem of connecting with opportunities, both as a nonprofit as well as from a academic researcher standpoint back in the day. And so what initially happened is one of the things that gave us a clue that it might be really helpful, that there was a real pain point around finding grants efficiently. And this is like going way back into my memory, but we posted something on Facebook that was like, hey, anybody out there want us to help? We'll find you 5 grants that are a great fit. And like instantly we got like 200 responses and we were like, whoa, okay, there's clearly a need here. And so that was really our focus for the first couple of years of Instrumentl, was really focusing on that matching process and making sure our database was comprehensive in all the different cause areas that nonprofits serve. And I like to say that we like basically automated Kat Corvo, my other co-founder's brain. Where we would actually have her like look at a project and look at potential matches that our algorithm was giving out. And then she would like manually look at how good those matches were. And then we would go back and like iterate on the algorithm. And we just kept doing that until we felt like the matches that we were getting at were actually like a person would look at that and be like, oh yeah, these are a good fit. And they're like in the right order as well. So that was it was a big focus of ours. And it's still a big focus to just continue to make improvements and make sure our database is updated and accurate.
Mm-hmm. I love how you're pulling that humanistic component to the tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like let's marry it together. So like use her brain, like let's do a trial. Like let's make sure that a human's looking at this and we're not just running algorithms and then kind of coming out with something, but let's make it more sophisticated. Totally. I think that totally works. Yeah. So going back, okay, you have these three of you are the co-founders, you and Kat and Angela. So kind of talk to us about why you got started in this and how you kind of got involved. We've heard Angela's story before, and I'm going to be sharing that again on an upcoming podcast, but let's hear yours because I'd love to hear how you guys got involved in this.
Yeah, so Angela and Kat really circled the problem from a bunch of different angles, like academic researcher, nonprofit. They also, Angela worked at a funding organization, so looking for grant seekers. So they really like circled the problem. And I joined very much as like the product and tech person to help bring the idea to life. So I have a computer science background. I've built software products before. I've had a startup before. And I was really excited about the idea of building a business that could make a big difference in a space where if somebody was successful using the product that I helped build, I could be really proud of the outcomes that we would be putting out there in the world. So that was really motivating for me to get started. And then as we started to like continue to build a product, like we just kept getting signals from the market that we were on the right track. So that just kept drawing me in and drawing us in and like kept moving us forward.
Nice. So has it always been like your dream then, like this technology, just to be able to like how your brain works? Like I'm sure it works in a certain way, right? With connecting with technology. Like how is that? How have you applied that really to? I mean, I kind of see some of it, but how have you really applied your passion then to Instrumentl?
Yeah, so I definitely am a product and tech person. Like I started my first company out of college it was also a software company. And I think that's just like, as soon as I discovered that startups and software was a thing, it like immediately clicked with me and was like, just felt like very natural place for me to be in. It's a very motivating and creative space for me. And I think that in terms of all of the things you could do in building a software company, the thing that I really enjoy, the thing that is like the most creative part of it for me is like building the actual product. And that's where we spent a lot of our energy, of course, in the first couple of years, is making sure the product we were building actually solved our users and customers' problems. And so I think the thing that we do differently at Instrumentl when it comes to building our product is that we really focus a lot on incorporating our customers' feedback and our prospects' feedback into the product development lifecycle. So for everything that we launch, we spend a lot of time talking to potential people, talking to potential customers, talking to customers. We show them designs, we show them like interactive prototypes. We show them when things are kind of in like a sandbox state, playground state before things go live. And through that process, we're constantly getting their feedback. And I think that has served us well with Instrumentl. We hear people tell us that Instrumentl is super easy to use, and we're really taking a different approach in terms of how we go about helping organizations with institutional fundraising compared to like the other players in the market.
Mm-hmm. And I think you guys have that. I like how you touched on that, how you get feedback, right, from the customers. And so if you guys are listening out there and you're a customer at Instrumentl, or you're thinking about becoming one, know that there is this added benefit, because sometimes on some of the other platforms, you might email them, it just kind of goes into the ether sometimes, not all of them, but you know what I mean? There is that difference. And how I've seen that with Instrumentl is personally is when I was at the Grant Professional Association conference, like, you guys didn't even have a vendor. Like, there was all these vendors set up. You guys didn't have a vendors. You didn't do it in a typical way. What you did was you said, hey guys, we're going to be there. If you want to see behind the scenes on how Instrumentl works, you can book a coffee with us, like a, coffee chat. And like in real person, like, let's just grab a coffee and get off the floor, even where the vendors, and go somewhere a little bit more intimate. And we can, Angela just like broke out her computer with me, and she just like loaded it up and went behind the scenes, was like, what do you want to look for? You know what I mean? It was like, it was so real. And I really like that approach and just that culture that your company brings to people, because a lot of us freelancers out there, right, we operate in these silos and we kind of operate behind the walls sometimes by ourselves. So it's nice to be able to reach out to a company and get hear back from them and just kind of get those questions answered. So definitely I do see that's what kind of puts you guys apart as well. So that's really cool. But when we had Angela on the show before, and she talked about there was a lot of demos, you guys were doing some launches. That was a couple of years ago. So I really want to see what you guys are doing, 2020, 2021 and beyond, kind of like, maybe shift because of the pandemic. Was there any? And then has that helped Instrumentl in some ways? And where are you going from that?
Yeah, so we have made a ton of improvements since the time that Angela jumped on. I would say that two biggest areas of improvement have been, one, to incorporate more 990 information, 990 data into the platform. So previously, when we started, we really focused on those like active opportunities that came from funder websites, and we would kind of scrape that data and keep it up to date. And now what we have is the ability for you to see almost like a foundation profile, essentially, of a funder. If it's a private foundation, you can look them up on Instrumentl and you can see their past giving, the past grantees. We now recently introduced in beta the ability to look up a nonprofit that's similar to yours and see who's funded them. So you can kind of do that reverse search and find out some new prospects that way. There's a lot more coming down the road in terms of us making sure that we have all of the available 990 data, and we're analyzing it and providing insights to our customers for how they can best approach funders and who those best funders might be. So more to come there on the 990 data side. And then the other big area for improvement on the product has been just a shift in I think what we can do as far as tracking. So again, back in the day, you kind of saw your matches, maybe you could save a couple of them, and that was kind of the gist of it. Most people still would use their spreadsheets or whatever other tools they were using for tracking. Now we have more and more of our customers who use Instrumentl as their primary tracking tool, in addition to it being their primary prospecting tool. And what they'll find is once they start kind of saving grants on Instrumentl, they have the ability to do things like add documents and tasks, and also track their history with a funder and opportunity year over year. And because we have the prospecting data, which that we have to keep up to date, or we do keep up to date, we keep track of the deadlines, we make sure we let you know if funders change anything in terms of their priorities. Well, that kind of muscle that we have really supports the tracking piece, because it's almost like you have like a spreadsheet that's magically kind of kept up to date for you. You can like click into a row of your spreadsheet, and what you get when you pull it up is like all the most up-to-date information about that opportunity, as well as any 990 data if it's from a private foundation. So that's been really exciting to really see how a nonprofit can overall just be way more effective and efficient with their whole process if they really engage with both pieces of the Instrumentl platform, with prospecting and tracking.
Love that. So in the actual tool where you're keeping track of all of your prospects, then you're going through and scraping data, and all of a sudden a deadline has changed that you have saved in your prospecting sheet, right? So all of a sudden that's automatically updated for you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. That's amazing. So
it's updated for you, and we will send you an email if it's a saved match or saved grant to let you know that it's changed, so that you're aware that it's changed.
That's amazing. Yeah, because otherwise, if you're not in there, you think there's still another month, but it got updated or whatnot, or you think, or it got postponed, right? And you're rushing around. So that's worth a lot, because that saves the grant writer a lot of time. Because I know when I started, oh my gosh, I'm gonna say my age, but I got started in 2005. And I remember I was living outside of DC, and I was, I'd have to go down to a actual directory place. There was only a few different foundation directories at the time. I'd actually have to go to the brick and mortar place because that was the only place where they hosted the international foundations. So yeah, so I couldn't get it online. I had to drive to DC, try to find parking, you know what I mean? Like all of this stuff. And then it was like a book. So of course that's not updated.
Yeah.
So it was like so frustrating. So it's really cool to see the advances in the last 15 years or so of grant research and how we can access it. So do you think that makes it more competitive, or, like as far as there's more people out there applying for these grants because there's more ease and access to these foundations now, or?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I think it's kind of a question that spans even multiple industries, right? Like a lot of stuff is more public. And so the advantage of having like insider kind of secret information is like no longer like as relevant, right? Because everyone has access to the same information. So I do think that the funders that are public about their information will be getting more applications. And I think it's more, what we advise our nonprofits to do is to really be very discerning with the opportunities and the funders they decide to pursue, and wherever possible, try to get some signal from the funder that you're truly in line with what they're looking to fund, even if they don't have like an LOI process. So just having like an email confirmation or a verbal, quick phone chat that just is like, are we on the right track here? Do you think we should apply? And having that like thumbs up, it goes a long way.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I love that. Don't just send out, because I saw a lot in the beginning too, when I was working, like people would just be like, oh, just write the 2-page letter of inquiry and send it out to 100.
Yeah. I don't think that strategy will work anymore. Yeah.
No, it never works. It's like, that's a recipe for a lot of failure and a lot of no's. So, but yeah, I like how you're talking about being more discerning and everything. And I think part of that too, I like that you're building up the 990s, because I always did step dance. It was like, look at this place, go to this foundation place, look at, or even go online and look at the foundation, look at all their things, look at the application, look at the eligibility, but then go to this other website and now look at their 990. See who they're actually funding. So can you kind of talk about the beauty of 990s and how that's important, or why that's important to grant writers?
Yeah, so the way that Instrumentl works today is we match you to these active opportunities. Which is great, because then they're like opportunities that you can theoretically pursue. And then if it's an opportunity that's from a private foundation, we'll also right there have a way for you to see essentially like a foundation profile, or like what we call a 990 report. And through that, you can see what we call a funder's implicit preferences. So we say that the opportunity information that comes from the funder's website is often like their explicit preferences, like what they say they want to fund. But then you also definitely have to look at their implicit preferences, because sometimes you'll see funders will say on the websites they're super broad in terms of geography, eligibility, or cause area eligibility. But then you look at their organizations they funded or the states they funded organizations from, and you can see that there's a clear preference. So through the 990, because on 990 forms, foundations have to report all the grants that they've made, you can see pretty clearly what their preferences are through that. And then you can also see things like their average and median grant amount, just the trends in giving overall, which kind of all help inform whether or not the ROI calculation for this funder is like, makes you want to actually go for it or not.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's one of the most valuable things. So I'm super happy to hear and to see that you guys are really kind of honing in on 990s. And that's really basically for what foundations need to file every year for their taxes.
Yeah.
So that's public information, right? It's registered with the IRS. And so we're able to see it, but sometimes it's hard to find, right? So I'm glad that you guys are pulling that, which is really, really important. And I love that you talked about, and basically it's usually near the back, you guys. So if you look at a 990, sometimes it's quite long and you can go kind of near the back-ish. And you can also see, what I like on there is board of directors. So they have the board of directors names, because if it's a smaller foundation or in your area, you might know that person or something, you know what I mean? There could be some kind of relation or just, kind of that 7 degrees, right, of knowing somebody. So it's really cool to see too, okay, this is what's happening. They say they fund here on their website, like you said, explicitly, But then it's like, we're really digging in and saying, well, they say on the website, they usually go up to $10,000, but all these grants I'm seeing are like 2,500, right, each.
Right.
So should I ask for 10,000, right? Should I really? So those kind of like insider kind of looks, and you know what to look for, right? So I'm really glad that you guys are doing that as far as the 990s. Now, what about just kind of stepping back to my struggle back in the day of having to go in somewhere to a brick and mortar for international grants? So I get a lot of questions about where to find international. So can you talk about how Instrumentl is supporting international funding as well?
Yeah, so our current focus today are funders based in the United States. Many of those funders will focus on nonprofits based in the United States, but some of them do fund internationally. So we will capture those opportunities into Instrumentl. We don't currently focus on funders who are based internationally today, though that is a potential area of expansion in the future. If you're interested in that, would love to kind of hear more from you and see that that's kind of where the demand is. But right now there's so many grant opportunities and funders in the US that kind of captures a lot of the kind of market right now. So that's kind of our current focus.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I was just looking, it was like in 2019, there was over 88,000 foundations alone in the United States. And that's not even federal opportunities. That's just foundations, right? So there's a lot.
It's funny. There was a moment in the beginning of Instrumentl where we were like, and this is funny because people ask us this, they're like, well, what database do you get all your grants from? And we're like, there is no database. Like, we're building the database, but because there's no database of all the grants before Instrumentl, it was hard to know how many were actually out there. And so if you look at the other kind of databases that were out there, me, Kat, and Angela were like, maybe we're going to run out of grants to build, but it's like a bottomless barrel. Like there's like so many opportunities if, there's state and local and private foundation and corporate, and everything is always changing. So it's like a large supply of opportunities.
Which is really a positive thing when you look about, these are organizations that are set to really help nonprofits and help meet gaps in the community. So there is, and I always think, there's that whole, I think a lot of nonprofits come from a place of, we need to pay pennies to our staff. We need to look for volunteers, kind of like this poverty mindset. And I say, look, money is out there and you need to ask for it. And it's okay to ask for it because it's just energy, right? It's a mechanism to fund your project, to fund the mission that you're so passionate about. So be assertive, be aggressive, and be out there asking for it, knowing what it solves, right? Knowing how you can meet that money to mission and really solve issues. So a way to do that is clearly through grants, right? But if you're not reaching out to the right people and you're getting a lot of no's, that can feel really like, oh my gosh, you start taking it personally, right? It's not, they don't like my project. So it's like, that's not the case. So how can you kind of speak to, being more specific in who you're reaching out to through Instrumentl? Like, how do you guys do that? So, it gets to more yeses. I know you can't guarantee anything because that is just a whole nother thing. But at the same time, you can help increase the competitiveness, right, of someone to apply through this platform.
Yeah, great question. I think that there's a couple of things on that. One is that I know you mentioned that you have a lot of like kind of budding grant writers that listen to you, people that might be like relatively new to grants. And I think one of the things that we find that Instrumentl really helps with, because of just like the way that it's designed, is it almost like walks you through the grants process in general. Like it almost like teaches you how to do grants. And we have a lot of like grant writing educators that will like include Instrumentl in their curriculum for that reason. And so we basically walk you through like, setting up your project, helping you kind of select the right information. You get your list of matches, and then you kind of go through the process of selecting the right ones, figuring out which ones you want to go for, moving them through the pipeline, and keeping it all organized and Instrumentl while we're helping you stay on top of all the deadline reminders. What's really important is, one, to be discerning. And we aim to give you all the information on Instrumentl to do that, by one, having, first of all, the most comprehensive data set of opportunities to pull from, and two, matching you to those opportunities that are relevant, and three, giving you the information and like insights into the opportunities and funders so you can make your decisions. And then after that, the thing that's really important that I like to emphasize, especially for folks that are new to grants, is that it can be like a longer term, like fundraising strategy, right? Like you might apply to a funder 1 year, you might not receive funding from them, but you shouldn't think about that. As long as you think they're a good fit for you, and hopefully you've gotten some sort of positive feedback or positive threads, shouldn't be the end of your relationship. And I would encourage folks to like not drop the ball there and have like a more longer term perspective. And then potentially reapply, keeping in mind the feedback that they got, or keeping in mind, or really trying to showcase like how things have changed or improved at the organization, or what new impact they've been able to deliver, and then reapply. And maybe even like third time is like the time that they actually win that application. And so what we want to do with Instrumentl is help you stay organized so that you can have a process and like have a system. And one thing that's been really exciting is that we actually did an impact survey recently that showed that folks that use Instrumentl almost double the amount of applications that they're trying to get out, or that they're able to get out, while saving time. They're saving like multiple hours a week, but they're getting out twice as many applications. And so that is super exciting, because that just helps to show that we're helping to make the whole process more efficient. Yeah.
That is great. I mean, and you can say when you have a system in place, and a system that is smart and sophisticated and works, like it takes so much time off of your plate as a freelancer, just as a grant writer. Even all you executive directors out there have had grant writing dumped on your lap, right? Like, how do I save time? That's one of the biggest things, right? I would say that's the most valuable thing anyone has to offer, right? Is their time. So, and being able to save that time and be efficient with time and get more yeses that way, right? With being more discerning, that is just, I like that process that you guys offer, more than just, oh, here's a grant research platform, find some foundations out there, but you're actually going through a process with your educational workshops as well. So really cool. So do you guys find that on Instrumentl, you get more people who subscribe that are executive directors, that are freelancers, like nonprofits in general, or just a whole mix of that?
It's a whole mix. I mean, the two big categories are professional grant writers working with multiple clients, and then grant writers working within a nonprofit. I would say we still tend to skew a little bit more to the grant writer working within a nonprofit, but I would say over the past like year or two, we've started to really see more of an increase in the professional grant writer kind of user type on Instrumentl. And then we see folks of all different at all different organizational sizes, and so based on that, we'll have different titles. So if it's a super small organization, we might have EDs using Instrumentl. Mid-size, you might have development directors, or bigger stages, you might have like grant writers dedicated to grant writing using Instrumentl with like a larger team. So yeah, it really depends on the size, like the stage or like the size of the nonprofit.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, it's just being able to have that access to it, and, having different people on there so they can give different feedback too. And as far as your, because this is one of the things too, I say for freelancers who are out there. So even you can charge just to do research. So a lot of times I have been asked just to put together, the organization might not be ready to pay for grant writing services yet, but they want me to come up with the 10 best fit grant research, right? The actual places to apply to. So you can pay for that separately, or you can charge for that separately. So that's a good way too, as I kind of say, if you want to be able to learn how you can fund, because, Instrumentl you do pay for, right? You get 2 free weeks trial, but it is a paid to play place. And, I say that could be a way to do it, is to put out your services, like I'll do some grant research and then you can help fund it that way. And of course, for people who are working inside a nonprofit, this can be a nonprofit expense. And even for you freelancers, this can be a business expense, right? So there's different ways to kind of go about funding it. But there's other opportunities that you have as well, as far as every 2 weeks, you guys have been doing free education workshops, which have been really cool. I've seen Dr. Bev kicked it off. And
totally.
Yeah, she's been on the podcast a lot too. So I was like, oh, cool, Dr. Bev, she's so amazing. So I love supporting her work. And you guys have been getting a lot of really cool people on there. So it's been cool to see that you're offering this to the community as well. So yeah, sure, Instrumentl is a pay-to-play place, but you're also offering free education out there for grant writers. So is that hosted somewhere specifically where people can find those free education workshops?
Yeah, it's a site called Luma. It's like lu.ma/Instrumentl.
And we can
and I can send you a link.
Okay, yeah, we'll share that link in the show notes today, you guys. So definitely check that out. And then, like I mentioned, I'll be on Instrumentl in a couple of weeks doing one of those education workshops. So I'm
right.
about that, yeah. But I also wanted to touch just real quick, because this is another thing I get a lot of questions on, federal grants. Now, I know Instrumentl foundations are probably the primary, the funding sources that you have on there. But as far as you also mentioned state, so I'd like for you to kind of talk about state grant opportunities or state contract opportunities, but also federal grants. Where do you guys kind of lie with those kind of areas, both state and federal?
Yeah, so federal, we're fully comprehensive. So we plug right into grants.gov, and our maximum turnaround time is 3 days. So if something's posted on grants.gov, you should see it within Instrumentl, ideally less than 3 days from then. State grants and like other local kind of government grants we're not comprehensive in that, but that is an area in which we are working to be more comprehensive and hope to have like a similar sort of commitment there soon, where we can say that we're fully up to date and can stay up to date.
Oh, that would be so good.
Yeah, state grants are a beast in terms of
trying to find them.
Kind of, exactly, yeah. And every single website is totally different, and you can be on the website and still not even find the grant opportunities.
Some of them use bids, RFPs, IFBs, like all the language is different. They all use different website providers. So it looks like you said completely different. The menus are different. It's So that's even like city departments, city municipalities, that sort of thing that you're pulling.
We're first going to go state, and then we'll go to the next layer. But yeah, I think, I'm excited for it because it's hard. It's a hard problem. It's hard to stay on top of all of that. So once we are able to kind of tackle that, then it'll add a lot of value to our users.
Oh yeah, that's huge, you guys. So if you've been looking for grants for a while and you're only focusing on the foundations, you're only focusing on federal, you are missing out if you're not looking for state. I love state grants. I love state contracts, but finding them is a bear. But once you find them, it's so good, especially contracts, right? So they're a little bit different than grants, a little bit not as weedy as far as reporting and stuff. So once you get them awarded. But yeah, I mean, that's amazing that you guys, so yeah, definitely we'll have to have you back on when you guys kind of launch that area a little bit more. So
cool,
yeah, because that's such a benefit. And of course, another question I have, because I'm based here on Guam, what about the territories? Are you guys also pulling from the territories? I know you mentioned international just a little bit, but not really focused, but also, you're pulling from the territories because they are US based. Are you also pulling from some of their foundations that they have?
That's a great question. I believe we do, but I am not 100% sure.
Okay.
I can follow up with you. Yeah.
That's always good. I always got to represent. So so it can get a little bit weird. I know sometimes it's kind of like, it'll be like, oh yeah, we can apply for this because we're US, but then when you do a click down, there's all of the, there's all the abbreviations for the states, but there's not for Guam or Puerto Rico or, the Virgin Islands. So so it's like, just because it's online, we run into a lot of tech issues, right? Because it doesn't connect through the tech, even though they say it's open. So it's I
know that we structure it so that you can filter by those territories and select them as part of your profile and your kind of project locations. But in terms of if we specifically are sourcing funders or grants that are for those regions, I would have to confirm that.
Okay, all right. Well, hopefully, we'll see. All right, so now that we've seen all these amazing updates, I love the updates with Instrumentl as far as incorporating more of a walkthrough process of the grant writing, and then even the grant management process, right? How to manage where you submitted, how to manage all of that, how uploading documents. That's a huge thing. That's a huge plus because you can actually upload all of the things, right, that you need to apply for that grant. So even if you're not applying directly through on Instrumentl, clearly, you still have to go through the application process that the funding source requires. So through their website or emailing them or however that is, right? But you can put all of your application stuff up on Instrumentl. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what we basically each row on your tracker, once you save an opportunity, you can attach your documents. The most common use case we see is folks uploading their final proposals once they submit it. And then once they reapply next year and they have a new record for, let's say, 2022, it's really easy for them to look back at their 2021 record and access those older historical documents.
Yeah. And that's a huge plus. And I just want to kind of touch on this because you might be saying, Holly, why are you bringing this up? And I'm bringing it up because there's sometimes, especially we lose things, computers crash, like there's turnover at nonprofits. That grant writer that was there last year that wrote that grant and submitted it, they might not be there anymore. Where did all that information go? Those are hours and hours of super valuable documents that have been put together, even if they weren't awarded. Like you said, you can pull from them again. You can kind of see historically where you're at. So you don't want to lose those. So I love that there's that feature in Instrumentl because it's another added element of institutional, strength, right? That you can actually keep things in your institution, your nonprofit, or your grant writing business and not lose it.
Yeah. And then I talked to so many people on, customer conversations that are like new to the organization. They're just getting started with grants and they're like, I don't know where anything is. And they're just starting to use Instrumentl. I'm like, well, use Instrumentl. And then the next person will know exactly where everything is.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I've even so many clients, because I'm a freelancer and they'll contact me a year or two later, Holly, where's that?
Right.
And then I'm like, oh man, so I've got to keep all these files, right? It's taking up space on my Google Drive or whatever. So if I can keep it up in Instrumentl, you know what I mean? And keep a place where I can or I have to dig around and find, where was that client folder under? Because that was a while ago. You could just put it there and find it, right? So that's such a huge save of just being organized and saving time once again, which will add to your, just be able to focus on finding those good funders instead of where things are. So,
yeah,
that's good.
Totally.
But I love that. And I love that you have the 990s, that you guys are really showing those more. Like I said, those are golden. That's always been one of my, I would say one of my strengths in grant research is to know how to read a 990, because that's what really helps you, like you said, connect with the best fit, right? And that's going to increase your chances of securing those funds if you can connect with the best fit foundations or funding sources. So really cool. So before we got off today, I just kind of wanted to wrap it up, but I wanted to go ahead and offer anything else you'd like to mention for Instrumentl, or even personally, what's going on in your life that you'd want to kind of share with us here on grant writing and funding.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of just to wrap up, I would say thanks so much for having me. It's great to connect. I hear so many people, like just in random situations, I'll be like, oh yeah, I watched the video with Holly on that cool. On the internet. So it's cool to actually be here live and chat with you. I would say that for folks that are listening, would love for you to just try out Instrumentl. We have 14 days free, as Holly mentioned. So you don't have to put in your credit cards. You can totally see for yourself if it's worth it or not. And if it's not worth it, at the very least, hopefully you'll come away with some grant opportunities that you can pursue. And if you do think it's not worth it, would also love to hear your feedback on it so we can continue to make the product better. But I do think that you'll hopefully be impressed with just how we have been thinking about making the process much easier for folks like yourself. And yeah, I think in terms of personal life, I'm sharing with Holly, I'm getting married in July. So maybe next time I'm back, I'll be a married woman. It'll be fun.
I love that. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Yes, you're so welcome. I'm so excited for you guys. So that'll be really, really great. And then of course, you guys, Instrumentl.com. So, and it is spelled INSTRUMENTL.com, but you can also jump over to grantwritingandfunding.com/173, where all of the show notes for today's episode will be. So once again, congratulations to you and Angela. I'm super excited that
Thanks, Holly.
co-founders are getting I love it so much. And this is really cool that I've got to interview both of you, and now you guys are going to be a married couple. Yeah. I'm feeling so blessed. So it's going to be fun. So we'll definitely have to have you back on soon to talk about more things that Instrumentl is doing, as you guys are always improving and growing and just serving the community. So thank you so much again, Gauri, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Holly. Take care.
You too.